Hi everyone, Paisley here.
And this is Dr. Crow.
And today we are back with the Wonder Challenge where we try to build every wonder but only restart if we miss ones we've been to. Now, I ended last episode with missing the University of Bleep. And thankfully we've never been there, but there are about 6 more wonders we have been to, so I need to really focus on getting those.
Yes, it's going to be a lightning round episode for sure. We got a lot of wonders to get through today.
And the ones that I'm currently working on, Alhambra we've been to, Orsakaz, the Hungarian parliament we've been to, so I'm really focusing on getting those. I'm trying to unlock Big Ben because we've been there as well. In the city of Handan, I've just placed St. Basil's Cathedral. Someone tell me which one. But I also need to chop it out because I just settled this city recently. And the first wonder we get in this episode is Taj Mahal.
This is my favorite wonder. I think it's the most beautiful building. There's a really nice article by Ebba Koch describing how this is actually a work of architectural theory in practice. This is a mausoleum built by Shah Jahan for his wife Mumtaz Mahal, but he's also buried there.
The main structure is a large marble building, but they're actually missing a lot of the complex here. And one of the side buildings is actually a mosque, and the other one is there to balance the mosque sandstone structure. And the other important part is the large gate, the darwaze, which we will see in Civ 7. So I'm really excited about the upgraded model in Civ 7. I think it represents the site a lot better. And as you mentioned, Taj Mahal is a tomb. It follows a long tradition of tomb building in the Mughal Empire. You can compare it to, for example, the tomb of Humayun.
But one interesting example is the tomb of Aurangzeb, who follows Shah Jahan, and his tomb is just a simple plot of earth.
Right, and this was a conscious decision to sort of reflect his religious piety.
Exactly.
So no humbleness going on in the Taj Mahal, however. And in terms of the Taj Mahal's ability, it gives you era score for each historic moment if it's +2 or more.
Interesting.
What do you think that's related to?
Honestly, I'm not quite sure. I think it's designed to kind of reflect the fact that you have this series of rulers, from Babur to Aurangzeb, who are this kind of Mughal golden age that kind of continues throughout that period.
And moving on quickly to the Alhambra, we are getting really important wonders here. This one we have been to. It's in Granada, Spain, but it is an Islamic structure originally.
That's right. It was built by the Nasrid rulers of Granada starting around 1238. It was conquered 1492 by the Spanish, and it was actually added on to by Charles V. So it's actually a kind of conglomerate of different buildings. Alhambra means the red one because of the stone color, but it has these many beautiful gardens and an extremely ornate stucco decoration.
The abilities for Alhambra is mostly military focused.
I mean, it is a fortress. I don't know. I mean, it was famously taken over, but Granada was the last remaining Moorish holdout in Spain.
And it functioned almost like a city, right?
Oh, shit. Well, similarly, the Forbidden City is also this kind of palace city complex, right? So here's two kind of palace cities. According to tradition, it has 9,999 rooms, but that's probably not true. Built starting in the Ming Dynasty and really continued as the Imperial Palace until... Oh my god.
Well, here we go.
Here we go. Hagia Sophia. This one we had to get to.
Yes, this one we've been to at least 20 times. I'm not even exaggerating.
Yes.
We've lived in Istanbul for 5 years.
So, this structure was built during the reign of Justinian. It's actually on the site of a previous church, but this structure was really, this enormous endeavor. The dome was this incredible feat of engineering.
What is really impressive about it is that it sits on this really short drum that's fenestrated, meaning there are windows around the drum. So when you look up, it looks like the dome is kind of floating, and it adds this layer of lighting to the basilica. And one of the really important parts about basilicas in particular, I think, is the sensory aspect. It's the lighting that's shimmering off of the gold tassels, smells from the incense, it's the echoes of the chanting. In that time period, going to a basilica like Hagia Sophia was a sensory experience that is very much lost today.
Right, I mean, today it has electric lights, so it's a bit different than the candlelight you would have had in the Byzantine and Ottoman times, to be fair.
Okay, moving on quickly. I should have probably left more space between wonders here.
Yes, this is the Hungarian Parliament building, or Szachaz, which we have been to.
I don't have much to say about it. Do you?
Not much. It's completed 1902, pretty late, and it was kind of modeled off of Westminster in London.
That's it?
Well, yeah.
Do the Hungarians justice.
Well, one interesting fact about the building, kind of sad, is that the architect went blind before it was constructed and died the year it was finished. So he never got to see it.
Oh, wow.
But it is a beautiful building.
Okay, well, that's the one fun fact for the Orsakal. or Sahaz, I think it's how it's pronounced.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the interesting things I learned in this playthrough is you can place the Great Zimbabwe next to a cattle tile you do not own.
Wow, interesting.
So even though Gilgamesh owns that cattle tile, I was able to place it. So we're going to hopefully get the Great Zimbabwe as well.
Perfect.
But before that, we're going to get Torre de Belém.
Belém.
This is one of the new wonders they've added with the DLCs. Any thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's a fortress that was built in 1519 to defect the Tagus River in Portugal. And it has this really kind of ornate, kind of Gothic style that's really characteristic of the period, but just some Moorish influence too. Like the nubs on there are kind of designed to be reminiscent of minarets. Yeah, it was intended to defend the river, and it has actually been used in combat before. The French bombarded it in the 19th century, but by that point, it was kind of useless as a fortification.
And the ability of the Torre de Belém is actually quite powerful. It gives you gold for trade routes, but it also gives you the lowest production building in every city you own, not on your continent.
Yeah, I think it's designed to reflect the fact that Portugal is actually the only European country whose capital moved to the Americas. It actually moved to Brazil, the Kingdom of Portugal, during the Napoleonic Wars.
That felt like a bit of a speed run.
There was a lot there, in 6 minutes.
Yeah. And now we're also just chopping out wonders. So in the city to the south, the new one I settled, I'm chopping out Potala Palace. And I just heard the "you lost a wonder" noise. And yes, I lost Huey Teocalli. Unfortunately, I have to admit, I just totally forgot it existed and I needed to build it. I was looking, if you recall, I was looking for a lake tile. I found one, but then I built St. Basil's Cathedral instead of Huey. So someone else built it. I'm a little upset, but it's kind of my fault. Like, I just forgot it existed. But why don't we do it justice and talk about it?
Sure. So it's the central temple of the Mexica people in Tenochtitlan. It's dedicated to two gods, Tlaloc and Huitzilopochtli. Did I say it right?
Hopefully that's how you say it.
I think so. You know, the god of rain and the god of war. But actually, it was kind of built over top of concentric temples. So as you kind of went down into the core, there were smaller and smaller older temples inside. But the last temple was demolished by the Spanish in 1521 or after 1521. So in the Aztec religion, the god Huitzilopochtli comes out of his mother fully grown, but his sister and their brothers kind of try to, stop his rise. And so he throws her down this mountain. And then we find at the base of the temple a stone representing his sister. So it's kind of designed to represent that cosmic mythos in architecture.
And so it gives you production and food on lake tiles. And this is because Mexico City really was a city on a lake. It's so impressive in the way it was built. And of course, losing Huey has made me even more nervous. So I'm doing a search to see what other wonders are being built. And actually Potala Palace, and there's a bit of a competition going for. So I'm buying all the tiles I can to chop it out as fast as possible. What is that? Where is that?
That's in Lhasa, Tibet, and it is this kind of enormous structure, 1,000 rooms built on this kind of outcropping of rock, and it is kind of the center of Tibetan Buddhism.
What about its ability? Which is, it gives you 1 diplomatic policy slot cards, as well as culture and faith and diplomatic victory points.
Yeah, I don't really understand the diplomatic aspect of it. I think culture and faith is very obvious. I mean, it's both a central cultural fixture of Tibetan culture, but it also is a sacred site in Tibetan Buddhism, and we get it.
Yes, we do chop it out faster than others. And it's quite a large structure, actually. It's placed within a mountaintop, right? So that's why it needs to be next to a mountain.
And the core palace of the Dalai Lama is that red building in the middle. The white buildings are for courtiers, monks, and different parts of the Tibetan bureaucracy.
And a much less impressive wonder is the Venetian arsenal. No offense, Venice, I guess.
Well, it's really interesting for how they pioneered mass production. So one interesting thing about the arsenal was that each section made a different part of the ship. So when they put it all together, they could build a whole ship in a single day.
Right. So you're saying it's sort of conceptually impressive, not so much aesthetically or architecturally impressive.
Right. I mean, it looks like a bunch of warehouses basically, but conceptually, it's really the origins of industrial manufacture.
And this is probably why you get a second naval unit every time you build one, as well as 2 engineer points.
Right, for sure. I mean, Galileo was one of the people who worked there. Really, a kind of center for science, engineering, and the Venetian Navy was so crucial to their power from the Middle Ages all the way until the, early modern period.
And Dr. Crow is applying for jobs this year. Hopefully he gets the one in Italy so we can go see a few more wonders,
Yes.
including Venetian Arsenal. And in the capital, we are working on Hermitage, where it's just an art gallery, right?
Yeah, it was built to house, the collections of Catherine the Great, her painting collections, and it really expanded over the course of the centuries to become one of the world's premier museums.
What does Hermitage come from?
It
Is it not French? It looks French.
Well, it refers to like a place where like monks kind of hang out, but it was pretty early on used as a museum.
And we actually know it's going to be in Civ 7 again. I believe we spotted it, I guess. But it was kind of hard for us to recognize because it does look like any other building to
A
me.
little generic, yeah, a little generic looking.
And speaking of wonders in Russia, we also get St. Basil's Cathedral in this tundra city. Now, this is a much more unique and interesting building architecturally.
Yeah, it really has, no comparable structures in, Russian architecture. It's kind of unique. People trace it maybe to Byzantine, maybe to Turkic architecture, and it was built to mark the capture of a Turkic cognate. It's built from 1555 to 1561, Ivan the Terrible's reign. When you look at it from the side, it looks kind of like asymmetrical, but actually a symmetrical structure.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And it gives you it's the tundra Petra. What is the relationship to tundra? Is it just that it's Russia?
I think so. I mean, Moscow is not actually in tundra, but I think it's designed to make it more useful to have those kind of snowy tundra tiles.
I just remembered I have been to this wonder actually. I was 9.
You have?
I have. I totally forgot. We were transiting and we stopped in Russia for some reason.
Wow.
Going to Iran. So good thing I got it, but I have no photos of me there.
We almost didn't have St. Basil's because it was almost demolished during the Soviet period. But there's a whole bunch of legends and stories about Stalin's decided to save it, or someone, grabbed Stalin and prevented him from destroying the building. And many of the other churches were destroyed, but this one was kind of preserved as a cultural heritage rather than a religious one.
And so this relationship to the site as a church, it also gives you relic slots as well as religious tourism. So yeah, it has this sort of indication of a both religious and cultural site. Next on my radar is Golden Gate Bridge. Now, we have not been there. Our friend lives in San Jose, so we just went to San Jose and not San Francisco. Therefore, I don't need to build it, and I cannot find a single tile anywhere on this map that it could go. But to be fair, I don't even know how it works, the placement of it. Okay, so I think I found a spot for Golden Gate Bridge. I just need to figure out how I'm going to settle -20 loyalty city, but this is going to be the spot. It needs to have water on both the left and right side of the bridge on a coast, so you can't even do it on a lake. So we enter the industrial era, but the first wonder we complete in this era is the Great Zimbabwe. When is that actually from? Because I don't really know.
Well, it's in the 13th century, so a little bit before industrial era.
I'm surprised I didn't lose this one, to be honest.
Yeah, and the site itself was settled in the 4th century AD, so really old. But this was a big palace enclosure built by the Shona people, and one interesting thing about it is there's no mortar used at all in the construction, so it's just stones that have been perfectly cut so that they are stacked together.
What is the relationship to cattle? Because it has to be built next to cattle.
Really, in South Africa, cattle were the source of wealth, and they're used as a medium of exchange.
But the next wonder belongs in the industrial era. It is Ruhr Valley in Germany. Now, we do have a German friend. We're like, oh, how do we get to Ruhr Valley when we went to Berlin? And she said, this isn't really a site you go to. It's not actually a wonder.
It's not like a single place. Yeah, it really is a generic term for a whole series of coal mining industrial towns in Germany.
Imagine a couple of tourists taking photos.
Please just show me Ruhr Valley.
And of course, Statue of Liberty, we just went to last month with our little baby. It was her first wonder.
Fun fact, this is going to be actually the 3rd wonder with Gustav Eiffel's involvement after Eiffel Tower and Panama Canal. Yeah.
Rank them.
Eiffel Tower, Statue of No, wait, Panama, I don't know.
No, obviously Statue of Liberty. And the 3rd wonder of the industrial era, of course, is going to be Big Ben, which is in London. It's a big clock. They don't know why it's called Big Ben, which is crazy to me because it was built like 200 years ago. How do you not remember?
Yeah, well, the
It's like
name happened.
it's almost living memory in England where
Yeah.
there's so much written sources. How come we don't know why it's Big Ben?
Yeah, well, Big Ben is the bell, and the clock tower was just called the clock tower, but now they recently renamed it the Elizabeth Clock Tower.
What do you mean Big Ben isn't the clock?
It's the bell.
What's the bell?
The bell and the clock.
You're gonna separate the clock and the bell?
They did.
They're kind of related.
But, so it was built in a kind of neo-Gothic style. That was during that time that the Gothic became understood as the English style.
Yeah, when I look at it, I just think about the clock at Kaaba. Here is our third wonder in Russia, Bolshoi Theater. Now, I've actually taught a class on Russian art, and Russian ballet in the late 19th and early 20th century is such an interesting time period of innovation in the genre. A lot of the ballets we see today are from this time period, like the Nutcracker, for example.
Yeah, for sure. Swan Lake. I mean, this is really, that source of modern ballet, right? And this theater was built in 1821 to 1824, and it's kind of been expanded since that time, but it's really been an almost continuous operation. Okay, and here we have the next Gustav Eiffel wonder, Eiffel Tower. This is actually meant to be a temporary structure just for the World Exhibition in 1889, but people liked it so much. Well, actually, they hated it, but
People actually hated it so much that they wrote like letters in newspapers saying, please do not let this represent us. And you know what? I agree with them.
Wow.
They were right.
What a hater.
Yeah.
But it did prove useful as a radio tower, so they kept it up. And then eventually people started to like it, started to love it, and it became a symbol of Paris. In the 20s and 30s, it was used as an advertising billboard.
Oh, God.
So if you thought it was ugly now, think about what it was like in the 20s.
Right. And I think the reason why people were kind of against it at the time is that modernism and sort of this sleek look hadn't really taken hold yet. The other buildings of the World Fairs were sort of eclectic. They had Moorish architecture, Byzantine architecture mixed in with Baroque. And so Eiffel Tower really stands apart from the other buildings built at that time for the World's Fairs.
But one interesting thing about it is that Gustav Eiffel really pioneered worker safety. So
Wow.
yeah, only one person died during the construction, which is pretty crazy considering that like Panama Canal, I think 30,000 people died. So
But that was also him, you said.
yeah, he was involved in it. He wasn't the main guy because the French effort to build the Panama Canal failed miserably, and the Americans had to take it over.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of the wonders we're getting now are related to tourism, like Eiffel, and also Cristo Redentor, which I get here, which is just a large statue of Christ. But it's really in this really interesting Art Deco kind of style, so that's at least interesting about it. Otherwise, is there anything else you can say?
I mean, it looks huge here. It's not that big. It's just 30 meters tall. Built 1922 to 1931 by a Polish sculptor.
It's Christ, it's a tourist site, therefore culture and religion bonuses. Going back to Mr. Eiffel.
Panama Canal, a man, a plan, a canal, Panama. And, this is representing both the initial French project and the American completion of it. French project was a huge failure. Many people died. However, the Americans decided to take it over. And they did so by kind of forcefully making independent Panama, carving this canal using heavy machinery. One difference was that the French tried to use what they knew at the Suez Canal in Panama, but the Americans instead began a huge program of mosquito control, malaria control, so it was much easier for the Americans to do it.
And next we get Sydney Opera House, which is, supposed to be next to a harbor. It's a seaside wonder. It's kind of interesting to put an opera house here, and also crazy to make a building that's not really keeping in mind the acoustics needed for performances, but I guess it looks cool, so here it is. I wonder if we're treating like contemporary or modern wonders with a lot of contempt as historians.
No, I mean, I think it's a nice building for sure. I mean, one interesting fact is that the architect, Jorn Utzon, his draft was actually in the discard pile. And then one judge, Eero Saarinen, said, oh no, that's the thing, even though everyone else hated it.
I wonder if it's polarizing today.
I think it's been accepted pretty much.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think
so.
Yeah, I mean, again, the acoustics are not great. They made some modifications to it that kind of really wrecked the acoustics inside. But as a visual symbol, it's really become the symbol of Sydney, right?
Exactly. Okay, so I finally settled Yi Yang, which is going to be my Golden Gate Bridge city. As soon as I can hold a little bit of loyalty, I'm going to figure out that actually Golden Gate Bridge does not go here. It
Oh my
cannot fit at all. And I think the reason is that it's not directly across. The hexes need to be like straight across. But are you kidding me? Where am I going to find that? So yeah, that was a fail, but I really could not find a single spot for it. That's not on me, that's on the game developers. But whatever, I get Broadway next.
Nice.
This is also in New York, so we've been here obviously.
I lived on Broadway pretty much. It's okay. I think it's supposed to be like Times Square there, which is actually named after the New York Times. That's where their headquarters used to be. That's it. I don't know. The street, it's got theater, it's got lights.
Cool, shiny. But I do get the city of Damascus and Sana into my empire, which will prove useful because I don't have a snow tile in my empire except the new city of Damascus. So that is the only snow tile I have. The next contemporary wonder is Estadio de Maracana. I guess if you have Colosseum, why can't you have Estadio?
Right, they look very nice next to each other.
Yeah.
It is just a stadium built 1950, famous because Brazil loves soccer, and but I don't know. Is that interesting? I don't know.
Now here is one you and I disagree about. This is a Canadian wonder, the biosphere in Montreal. We obviously have been to when, you go on class trips to Montreal. They take you here because we have no culture.
There's two wonders by Buckminster Fuller. This is one of them. So he's
Buckminster? What is that name, Buckminster?
Buckminster? I don't know. But one kind of funny fact is that this dome, the biosphere, was built for the exposition in 1967 in Montreal, but then caught fire. So nowadays there's just a shell left, and I think we go there thinking it was supposed to be just a shell, but actually it was covered in a plastic coating.
Why do you think they included it in Civ, at all?
It's a cool dome. I don't know.
Is there nothing else to represent Canada?
No.
Really?
A CN Tower? I don't know.
Yeah, just do the CN Tower. As a Torontonian, maybe I'm just being a little biased here, but the CN Tower is just much more iconic than the biosphere.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, there's a lot of interesting buildings that were built for Expo 67. Habitat 67 is an interesting one that were kind of designed to model what future architecture would look like. It's just kind of sad that for the environmental sphere, it burned and spread pollution everywhere.
So now we are working on our last wonder. Of course, these units decide to stand in my way, but I'm able to sort of rush it out using a great engineer charge on building, as well as faith buying the district that's needed with Moksha, and we did it. Here's our final wonder. Tell me about
This
it.
is the second Buckminster Fuller wonder because it has this dome. It has a second research station built there, but it got covered in snow, so they had to build a second one that's kind of built on stilts, like it's jacked up as the snow level increases.
I like the music.
It's very cool, yeah. But it just marks the exact spot of the South Pole, and the name comes from Amundsen, a Norwegian explorer, and Robert Scott, a British explorer. Both reached the South Pole at roughly the same time, named it after both of them in their honor.
So that is the Wonder Challenge. We built 50 out of 53 wonders. I missed Bleep University. I missed Huey, that because I forgot it existed, and I missed Golden Gate Bridge because there was no place to put it down.
Physically impossible in this world to build Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, I think so. So I would like to say I only missed 2 wonders because no one else built Golden Gate either.
But it's been nice going through all the wonders in Civ 6 in preparation for Civ 7. We're going to see some whole new wonders in Civ 7, plus a few returns of some favorites.
Yeah, I'm hopefully going to make a video on the new Civ 7 wonders we've spotted so far, and I'm especially excited to sort of compare and contrast the ones that are repeated. Let us know in the comments what you thought about this series, and if you have any thoughts on what kind of video you'd like to see next from us. Thank you for sticking around for the whole journey. This was, and sorry if I edited it too fast, this last video.
All right, we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.